Thank you for joining us again for another episode of Get Ready News. My name is Mark Lindsted. This is my brother David Lindsted. And we like to cover the news from a biblical standpoint. In fact, today I think we're going to continue our talk on AI. We're even going to talk about the new Line City, and maybe we might even bring up some of the Cube City they've been talking about. But where we might find AI or these things in the Bible is important to us.
Absolutely. We can see in end times that this is something that's going to be a major player in the end times. In fact, we see AI becoming a very major player right now.
Yes. And you know, as we cover these articles or these stories from the biblical aspect, and the reason we believe it's very important is because worldview matters. And how do you view the world? Do you view it through the world view or the worldly aspect of the world, or do you view it for the biblical aspect? And I heard there was a statistic that said that only 2% of Christian school kids actually have a complete biblical worldview.
Wow, that's amazing. And unfortunately, it wouldn't surprise me because the more and more people I talk to who claim Christianity, they don't even really have a biblical worldview either.
Yes, and it's a sign of the times, really, for the lack of knowledge. You know, in Hosea it says, "My people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge," and just to see, and you say, well, Mark, how can that be? Well, what we're talking about is we're talking about private schools, and a lot of them take secular books and then try to put God into the book. They take a secular curriculum, and so the kids might believe in God, but then they also believe that evolution is how God created the heaven and the earth.
You know, unfortunately, I find that with a lot of people who go to college.
Yeah.
I was one of those people that when I first went to college, I was kind of enamored with all of this intellect, intelligence that was there at the college, and you know, kind of little shook my belief a little bit, and you know, but through that I became stronger because I've realized later that what I was being told and being shown was not exactly true.
Yes.
And then if you're going to have a worldview, it's best to base it on something truthful. Yeah. And truthful, the only thing I found is the Bible. Everything else falls short.
In fact, the Bible is probably the only book I would ever consider to be absolutely true 100% of the time. And we always hear that, oh, science has proven the Bible wrong. Well, on the last page of the paper, the next day you'll see the retraction where it says, well, we kind of found out that the Bible had it right the whole time.
Exactly. One of the things that used to really get me was I'd see an article out and I'd say, we found the missing link. Yeah. And it's like, oh my, well, you know, creation can't be true if we found the missing link. And then got to where I said, well, maybe I need to read this article, and I would read the article and find out the article really had nothing to do with the missing link. It was just the title. Yeah. And I got into a bad habit of just reading titles, and now I read titles, but I read into the story a little bit because you find out that this doesn't always line up.
Well, I think that anytime we think we can definitely try and determine the age of something by some test that we have no reference for is very hard. I mean, think about this. At creation, when God created Adam, I assume he was probably in his 30s.
I would think so. Yep.
Mature male. So was Adam one day old, or was Adam 30?
Exactly. He was one day old, but 30 years. Yeah. He looked like a 30-year-old man. He wouldn't have made an infant.
So we can't even fathom how God created.
No.
We can't speak things into existence, so we have no idea how that works. And for us to try and measure that, we can.
No.
We're kidding ourselves.
I've studied this over and over and over again. I've spent years looking at this stuff. And one of the biggest things they use is the carbon-14 dating. And I think they can get somewhat close to an idea with the carbon-14 within a short amount of time. Yeah. But you don't even know how much carbon-14 was in the organism when it died, so you don't know how much is gone.
Well, and at the same time, we don't know, does carbon break down faster after 200 years?
Exactly. You know, and if you think the world is billions of years old, what other element or what other cause could cause that to break down even faster or slower? Maybe it added carbon to it. You have no idea.
Well, I think we joke ourselves as a humankind to think that we can determine a lot of these things. That's just not how it works.
No, I think it's us trying to become our own God.
Yeah.
And I think that AI is a good representation of our push to make ourselves God.
Yeah.
Now we have something we've created.
Yeah, we're creator now.
Yeah.
And we talked last week about how we think AI will be utilized. I know for myself and many of my friends at my age group, I'm in my mid to late 40s, and we're all on Facebook.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just kind of where we do everything. And unintentionally, I have tens of thousands of photos on Facebook of family vacations or birthday parties and little video clips. You know, I would never have thought to do a video on Facebook, but guess what? There are videos on Facebook from years ago while we were doing a birthday party for the kids. And I think that AI is going to use that. There was a study that said that they could do 12 images and some of your voice they could make you in AI. And I think Rapture is going to be explained by AI, or could be explained away by using AI.
Yep.
You get a FaceTime call from your loved one that says, "Hey, I felt sick last night. I went to the hospital. They carted me away to quarantine because I got COVID million thousandth and 5 with a variant X, Y, and Z and whatever. And I'm fine. I'm here." And that's how they're going to explain it away, or that's how I think they might.
I think that's a probability. You know, going back to the Facebook thing and putting pictures and videos on there, it seems like everything that comes out that seems to be good for us. You know, I'm giving this to you so that you have something good. You always have to look on the other side of things and think, well, why is this happening? And I find it interesting that through Facebook and even Instagram and some of these other social media, every piece of information the government would ever wanted on you, we have given to the government and just said, here's all my information. This is everybody I'm related to. So if they ever want to come and try to find you, they know who to go talk to. They know all that stuff.
Well, I know a lot of people who say, I'm not going to get a Fitbit, or I'm not going to get this. I don't want the government to track me. Well, guess what? You've been carrying a government tracker for a very, very long time.
Yep.
From the first time GPS was enabled on a cell phone, they've been able to know where you are and probably listen to your microphone and watch your video.
Yeah, in fact, I think the microphone is probably before the GPS.
Yeah.
I think they were able to listen at things, and I know that I've read articles and stuff that talk about if you use so many words in a certain sequence, you know, or if you text a certain thing. And one of the things I always got a kick out of is we do a Bible study that we call Faith Bible Institute out of Monroe, Louisiana. And so I say, hey, are you going to FBI class? And I think, oh, man, every time I type that, they're probably going, FBI, what is he doing?
Oh, wow. Well, today we're going to continue on that when we also think, the AI will be used in the end times with the image of the beast.
Absolutely. I think that's more than likely what the image of the beast will be. Yeah. Probably some type of robot.
Yeah.
Something with an artificial intelligence to it.
Yeah.
And I think that, according to the scripture, I think that he's going to give it power and life.
Yes.
And I think that means that it's going to be smarter than a normal AI.
Sure. Well, and I don't think that you could think, well, so the beast out of the earth is, who do we think the beast out of the earth is?
Probably some religious leader.
Yeah.
Probably somebody that starts with a P.
And who do we, who's going to give all this power? Who's going to bring all this supernatural stuff to being? Well, I think Satan is.
The beast, yeah.
Yeah, the beast.
Yep.
And so for him to give something that would seem better to us wouldn't be hard for him to do. He is a supernatural being.
It says here in Revelation 13:14, and deceiveth them that dwelleth on the earth by means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast.
Yeah.
So he only had the power to do this when he was in the direct sight of Satan or the beast.
Yes, yep. And I believe that some of the image gets struck down and comes back to life. And I really think if you think about the Star Trek guy, I think his name was Data.
Yeah.
I mean, perfect example of what this could very well be.
Absolutely. I agree. I think this is truth, and the thing that I find interesting is that he assigns to this robot, to this image, that if somebody doesn't worship, that they can be killed.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if this will carry it out. Will have minions that carry it out. Will people do what this AI says? I don't know.
Well, I think people during the tribulation will witness a real resurrection. That's going to happen to the two witnesses.
Yes. Yep.
They're going to be lying dead. I think it's 3.5 days that they lay dead in the streets.
Yep.
People on earth have a party that they're dead.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, guess what? You're going to see a real resurrection. And you're going to see what the power of God is versus the power of Satan.
And not only that, but after they resurrect, then they're going to be raptured.
Yeah.
But I think, and I'd have to read it again, I think it'll be a slower rapture because I think people watch them ascend.
Yeah, it'll be an ascension.
Kind of like what Jesus did when he went back to heaven.
Yeah, because 7 is what the Bible likes to notify as a perfect number.
Yep.
So if you think of all the raptures in the Bible, you think of Enoch, you think of Elijah. You got John went up to heaven in a vision. You got Paul, and then Revelation, and then the church, and the two witnesses. I think you could see that there's 7 examples of rapture biblically. So that's another reason we believe that.
Absolutely. And like I've said before, I have friends that don't believe in a pre-trib rapture, but just about everybody I know believes in a rapture of some type. And I think that it's a proper biblical teaching that there is a rapture.
Sure.
Although I do believe that it is a pre-millennial, pre-trib rapture. So.
We'll know when we get there.
Yeah.
And some people will have a good chuckle.
Yeah.
And I hope my friends don't get mad at me when I chuckle at them. Because I'm right. You know how that goes.
Yep.
Just a good poke and fun. And since the rapture is not tied to the doctrine of salvation, it's so good to have those discussions and exercise each other and sharpen iron with iron.
Absolutely. And we enjoy talking about it, my friends and I, and we don't hold anything against each other.
Yeah.
It's nothing that we divide over at all.
Yeah, definitely. So where else are we going to go with AI?
Well, here we've got some interesting article here. It says U.S. elections face more threats from foreign actors and artificial intelligence. And you think, well, what do you mean by that? Well, what the article's even really talking about is foreign entities, foreign governments, foreign countries. I guess it all countries before.
Yeah.
Anyway, would use AI to attack our system.
Yeah.
And I look at most of our voting now is electronic. And I don't care what anybody tells you. It is not safe.
No.
Anything that's online and open to the public is not safe, regardless of what they tell you.
I tell you, I watched a video the other day that was on TikTok, I believe, and it was a guy, the whistleblower from one of the voting agencies, and he was talking to the men in the back as they were taking the machines apart. They were taking the cassette tapes or the hard drive tapes out of the machines, and they were ruining them with screwdrivers.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, why are you doing that? Oh, they can't use it after 20 days anyway. Well, it's not been 20 days yet.
Yeah.
And it was a total destruction. So, yeah, AI and foreign entities, but what about domestic entities?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Using AI as well. I mean, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, you can set a program now, and this is something you could write, is a program that would sit there and brute force its way into something, break in, find a password, find a back door, and get in there and manipulate some data.
Yeah.
I think that we saw evidence that China was involved in our last election and actually trying to break into things. I don't know if they broke in or not, but there's a lot of evidence out there. They were pinging us pretty hard.
Well, it's interesting that one side of the aisle claims that there was a problem in 2020.
Yep.
And the other side says you can't say that.
Yep.
But in 2016, the other side of the aisle said there was a problem.
Yep.
And we were told that we should shut up when we remind them that they told us we couldn't say that.
Yeah, and the unfortunate truth of the matter is both sides are pretty evil.
Yeah. Yeah.
You end up kind of voting the lesser of two evils, if you know.
Well, I tell you what, and then even if you did a paper ballot, are you going to have a legitimate count?
Well, that was my next thing, because my son and I went in to vote at, here in Kansas, we had a voting on abortion. And because of Roe versus Wade was overturned, and now it just falls back to the states, and it didn't ban abortion. It just made each state have to qualify what it is they're going to do.
Yeah.
And we went there, and I asked for a paper ballot, and I filled out my paper ballot, and I handed it to the girl, and she took it over and put it in the machine anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if doing a paper ballot really matters.
That was such a sad vote to me as well. the amount of misinformation
Yes.
that was shared, that if you vote yes to ban it, then all women's health is going away.
Yep.
And they really did a number on scaring people on what would happen if it passed.
Absolutely. And, I think of the control of information, and AI gets in there, and AI knows what's being said. In fact, everything we say, no matter what platform it goes out on, AI is analyzing it.
Oh, yeah.
So when I upload this video to YouTube, YouTube is checking my video to make sure I'm not using copyrighted material. So, yeah.
That you're not using copyrighted material.
Yeah. Or songs that you shouldn't use. Or
How
something.
about you're just not saying something they don't want you to say?
Yeah.
That's really what we're looking at.
Absolutely. And we just see that AI is becoming a big deal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Where else are we going with AI?
Here we've got one. This is interesting, and I talked about this last year or so, and talked about how Discover Card wanted to report this. And what's going on here is when you go to the store right now and you buy a bat and a baseball and a mitt and you buy a gun, it comes to these credit card companies, it comes in as sporting goods purchase. Well, what's happening is now those things are starting to be divided out, and each individual thing has its own category, including GUNs. And so now we can track whoever buys a weapon and be able to say, this person bought this weapon, this is where the store they bought it at, this is how many they have, and all sorts of information can be gleaned from this.
Well, they're always trying to restrict the gun purchases.
Yes.
My youngest son, he's 19. When he turned 18, he wanted to exercise his right to buy a long GUN.
Yep.
Because at 18 you can own a shotgun or a rifle.
Yep.
And he went down and had to do the questionnaire because, believe it or not, there's a background check
Yep.
for every purchase to make sure you're not. But since he was 18 and buying a certain type of weapon, he had to answer he had to wait an extra day.
Yes.
So I can walk in there right now and I can fill out my paperwork, do my background check, and walk out. But since his age group is responsible for more of the problems here more recently, he had to wait till they did a thorough background check. And I said, you could change that and not have to do that if you just add 2 questions to that questionnaire. What gender are you?
Yep.
And have you ever taken medication for psych eval or for psychological problems?
The funny thing or scary thing, or I don't know how you would categorize that, but I work at a place where we sell guns and we do background checks, and that's Kansas's law.
Yeah.
If you go to another state, it's even more severe.
Yeah.
Some states are less severe.
Yeah.
But if you go to Colorado or you go to California, in California you can only buy 1 gun a month. So they would restrict you that I can only buy 1 this month and I have to wait 30 days before I can begin to sell on another one. And when I purchase it, I have a waiting period to pick it up.
Wow. Well, most of the weapons used in horrific acts are not obtained legally.
No, absolutely.
So no matter what laws you put on the books for that, it's not going to curtail what's happening.
Absolutely. And I'm looking at this, I'm not so much concerned about guns per se and these type of things, but what I'm looking at is now we're starting to categorize things into categories.
Yeah.
And there's things in the Bible that tell us that there is going to be some type of control to prevent somebody from buying things and doing things that they shouldn't do.
Lest you have the mark.
Exactly. It says in Revelation 13, it says, "And he caused of all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, that no man may buy or sell, save he have the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name." Yeah. So we've got to set up the groundwork for this.
Yeah.
And I think this is just the beginning of that. I do eventually think they're going to take away all of our rights.
Sure.
But this is headed toward things that I see in the Bible.
Did you buy vegan milk or did you
Yes.
buy milk from the farmer? Well, now you're in trouble because you bought the wrong kind of milk and we know what you bought and where you bought it from.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I've seen them where they talk about, you should only have so many servings of meat a week, and they would be able to track that and restrict you if they could
Yeah.
do this, and this is allowing them to do this. I'm not saying they're doing it now.
Sure.
I'm just
sure.
saying this
This
could
is
be
putting it in place.
this is putting it in place.
I saw a great meme the other day about the meat consumption, and it was a man had a tray of meat. And he says, "I try to eat twice as much meat so that when a vegan says he's making a difference, I'm taking away that difference." There was a girl. This was in Australia. She was debating with a farmer on the death of animals to eat them, and he looked at her and he said, "I just want to ask you a question. The belt you're wearing right now, is that vegan leather?" And she goes, "Yes, it's vegan leather." He goes, "That's interesting." He says, "Do you realize, just so you know, to make 500 grams of synthetic leather or synthetic material is more carbon footprint than driving 1,000 miles in an SUV."
Wow. Wow.
He said he could drive 2,000 kilometers to the Sydney or whatever, the capital of Australia and back for less carbon footprint than her belt.
Yep.
So their intentions are maybe in the right place.
Sure, I don't fault these people for wanting to change stuff.
But they don't understand what they're being sold on most of these occasions is a lie.
Exactly. I was listening to a video on another guy that was talking to a vegan about avocados.
Yeah.
In order to plant the avocados, they have to kill all of this wildlife to clear the place for them to grow.
Yeah.
And so you're looking at all this, you've destroyed houses of mice and rodents and all sorts of bugs and birds and stuff like that just to have your vegan diet.
What's his name? Is it Piers Morgan?
Yeah.
He talked about the avocados in England. He said, "You realize we had to fly those from the United States here. Those don't grow here.
Right.
So your avocados get more of a footprint than my lamb chop does from down the street."
And then you wonder why the avocado is so expensive.
Yep. So where are we going next here with the AI?
Well, the next thing is we're going into a 15-minute city. And, this is something that sounds good. Before I talked about how things are given to us in a good way. If someone's trying to do good here, we're trying to cut back on the amount of carbon, whatever back, we're trying to cut all this stuff back, but we open the door for somebody else to rule.
Yeah. Well, and I know that in other countries, and I haven't read all of it yet, but I think in China, there's so much AI on their street cameras that they know when you've left the area you probably should be in.
Yes.
And that's exactly where AI is going to tie into these 15-minute cities. You're going to get a text saying, "Why did you walk outside of your city? What are you doing?"
Yeah, I was reading an article earlier preparing for this, and they talked about you could only leave your area 100 times in a year.
Yeah.
And 100 times sounds like a whole lot, but it really isn't when they define when this is where you left.
Yes, yeah. Well, and then there was an agreement that some cities made for the 2030 Accord. There was like, you can only take one flight every 3 years. You can only buy three new clothing items every year. And it's just crazy things.
Yep, here's a thing comparing 15-minute cities with an old idea, the way cities used to be built. Well, it's interesting. We used to build it that way because we didn't ever have the ability to travel like we do today. Yeah. First off, and America is the first country, one of the first countries that was developed and built for cars to drive in.
Yes.
And it's kind of funny. One of my ex-employers was from the UK, and he would say, "Well, how far away is this customer?" I said, "Oh, it's a couple hours." He said, "Man, that's a long drive." I said, "In Kansas, 2 hours is nothing. I do that every day, and it's only 4 or 6 hours completely across their country."
Well, even in America, you can see the difference. When I was back in the New England area, I had an employer worked out of Rhode Island, and I would fly home to the corporate office to do a few things here and there, and I would come out of the parking lot, turn left, in about 30 minutes I was in Boston.
Yeah.
And for me, 30 minutes is just an across the town drive here in Kansas. And so I was there over a weekend. I went to Boston for a game at Fenway Park Friday night. And Saturday I drove back to Boston and did the Freedom Trail and did all this enjoyable touristic things. When I came back, everyone's like, "What'd you do this weekend?" I said, "I went to Boston twice." They're like, why did you drive that far twice? I said, man, that's like going to the mall.
Yeah, we got to drive that far in Kansas to go anywhere. Here in Wichita, in order to go to the big city, it's 2.5 hour drive to get to a Kansas City or an Oklahoma City.
Yeah. Definitely.
It's just every place is a drive.
It's totally different.
So now we're setting up these 15-minute cities, which means from your house you can only travel what you could travel by bike or walking in 15 minutes. And for the most part, even in Wichita, Kansas, I live predominantly in a 15-minute city.
Yeah.
I go to Walmarts and Leakers and stuff here and there. That's within distance of my house. I don't drive hours to get there.
But my father, though, is 20 to 25 minutes away from me, so I can only visit him 100 times a year.
Yes, absolutely. But that's 100 times leaving the area. So if you do something else where you leave that area, then you count one less for him.
Wow.
So it just doesn't take much to do that.
Well, I think we can definitely see exactly how the devil and how exactly Antichrist is going to use some of these things. And I think we need to look at this more. In fact, the next episode, let's talk about the line. Let's talk about the cube.
Yep.
And let's just kind of see where this fits into how they can control and manipulate where we go and what we do. I'm troubled by it, only to a point, though. I'm not troubled because I have the joy inside of me, knowing that I have a hope that others don't have.
Yeah, I'm not concerned. I don't want things to happen, but on the other hand, I'm comfortable in the control that God gives, and that God's over everything, and God's still on the throne, and He's still directing what's going to happen, and things have to happen. It says in Matthew 24:25, these things must happen.
Yeah, it in fact says, let me see if I can turn to it real quick. I really enjoy, everyone talks about wars and rumors of wars and all this stuff coming up, but they fail to read the next line there. It says, Matthew chapter 24, verse 6, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled.
Yes.
Don't worry, for these things must come to pass. And He's going to protect us through all the travail that leads up to the tribulation.
Absolutely, and He's also promised us that our souls are going to be saved. Don't worry what man's going to do to you.
Yeah.
Man can kill this body all he wants, but he can't kill my soul. He can't take that from God.
Amen. And we go straight back to the Bible on this. We look at 1 Thessalonians in chapter 4, and in the last 3 verses there, it talks about the rapture of the church, I believe. And he says, comfort one another with these words.
Exactly.
So as we leave you this week, just comfort one another with these words, read your Bibles, get closer to God, and we'll see you next week.